I have a crippling headache, but I'm here to talk to you about the principles of design, specifically within filmmaking, within video making. That involves still images that are being designed for the purpose of a video, or an actual video that is being designed with that same sort of graphic design sort of thinking. Before I can talk about the principles of design, though, I need to talk about design thinking. Basically, design thinking is an iterative process in which we try and understand the user. Sorry, that was a really stupid Tron reference right there, but we try to understand the user, what's gonna draw that person's attention, what's gonna take that person's attention away, what's contrast gonna do here, what's color gonna do here. It's also about redefining the process of design, of, kind of being unique to yourself and kind of just, figuring out the problem in your unique way. It's very important to design, otherwise you're gonna get nowhere. It's also about challenging your own assumptions that you have, researching, are the assumptions that you have incorrect? Are they actually wrong? Because they could be. But that is design thinking in a nutshell. Now I actually want to go into the principles of design. Now, one of the first principles of design is alignment. Specifically, that means basically connecting elements that work well together. I know that's very sort of vague, but an idea could be, say, you're gonna sell a PlayStation, for example. So on your Photoshop, you make basically 3 PlayStation games and you align them with equal spacing and make them have equal kind of sizing. That would be alignment. One of the most important principles of design is hierarchy, and under that fall many different levels of color and contrast. For example, size. It's basically about what creates a hierarchy, and hierarchy is all about, where the viewer shifts their attention. Does it go here? Does it go below? Does it shift from below to up top in a frame or in an image? That's what hierarchy is about, but it's, there's subheadings under that of color and contrast. How is this all used? But I'm gonna get nowhere with talking about the principles of design if I don't give you some examples. One of the greatest examples, and I want to highlight contrast and the rule of thirds in this one, is the Casino Royale title sequence. The Casino Royale title opening does the contrasting thing so well because it'll show 2 silhouettes basically made out of little card diamonds. That's what they make it look like in the film, at least. But it's like silhouettes of 2 people fighting, one in the classic white and black, that's obviously Bond, and then one in red, and that's obviously a goon that he's fighting. And the thing about that is, number one, it identifies who Bond is, but also those 2 contrasting colors of red and white and black really draw your attention to both of them, but also shows you who you need to root for, who you want to basically not root for, I guess. Wow, very great wording there. But it shows you where to look, it shows you who you should be rooting for, and it also just pops out the design, because if you look at the background, it's a completely different color, and that makes you look at also the more pleasing colors, because the color behind them isn't the most pleasing thing in the world. Linked to this would be when the rule of thirds is used in this title sequence. For example, Bond will be kind of black, but this is also contrasting because he's in like almost complete black and a little bit of white, but mostly black, and that will be very contrasting colors to everything else in the design. But he'll be this little figure almost on the right side of the frame and on the left side of the frame later on in the title sequence. And the only reason why you really notice him so easily is because A, of the rule of thirds, and he's in the third right of the frame, and B, because of, his color compared to the browns and the reds and everything that are there around him when he's black and white, basically. But the rule of thirds does so well to highlight him here, because there's just this whole clutter of stuff, basically, and then we look at the one thing that's very ordered, and that's kind of this figurine that's standing on the one side of the frame. If you changed him to a different color, put him somewhere else on the screen, he would be a lot harder to find, to be honest. And sure, you'd find him because it's still like a human figurine, but he wouldn't stick out just straight away like bam. Now, when it comes to design, it's not just about post-production. It's not just about effects that you do and things that you make with vectors and everything. It's also about production design, which production design in film, or really in anything that has to do with a camera, is obviously about how the sets look. It's about how characters dress. It's about making sure people know where things are taking place. It's also about even changing the color grading. I know that, like, it's very broad. It has to do with how things are on set. It has to do with how things are graded. It's actually a production designer's job is hell, to say the least. But when they do it right, it really works. I want to use John Wick for this example. Two things in the production design I want to talk about is how they use color and also the typeface. So let's start with the typeface. There is a scene where one of the main villains, because there isn't really a main villain in this film, but there's like a main mafia boss. When the main mafia boss is sitting at a fireplace, he's talking about John Wick being the boogeyman. It's subtitled so you can understand the Russian, and it's usually just a normal white font. But as he says boogie, the boogeyman, it goes basically orange at the front with a red shadow behind it, and the typeface is completely different to the rest of it to highlight it to you, and that would fall under production design, believe it or not. And when he says take, the text is more red than it was before. It's still a bit orange, but the orange in the front is a lot more red, and the shadow behind it is a lot more pronounced red too, which I really like, because while they're both talking about similar things and while the typeface both changes, even those two typefaces that are different from the normal white text are different from each other because of the different words, boogeyman and take. Those two different words, because take is a lot more of a kind of aggressive verb, and the boogeyman is like a thing. It's ultimately done to draw the eye and to symbolize what that word means with more than we could just do with our own head, basically, because that kind of corny text and the colors put behind it really just gives us a clear understanding of what we're meant to take from boogeyman. When it comes to color, specifically in the production design, John Wick does well with this, not only in post-production but also on set. For example, if John Wick's fighting, or just John Wick in general, he's always going to be wearing black. Hell, even the goons might be wearing black, but he'll always be wearing black, and the background around him will always be something to highlight him. For example, if he fights by a white wall, it'll almost look like he's black paint spilling onto the white wall when he's fighting another goon in black. When he's, say, in a club scene and there's all these flashing lights, all those flashing lights bounce off onto his black clothing, kind of highlighting him where he would otherwise be, you know, pretty damn hidden. It's a great way to, you know, they put him in these black clothes and then they light him up in a different way, or they highlight him in a different way. Even in a nighttime scene, him being behind a white wall kind of, you know, just completely shows, number one, his mood, because, well, they killed his dog. And also, B, really makes it easy for you to tell what he's doing because he's in such color contrast to everything else, because, well, black against white, black against like strobing red and green and blue lights and everything. I've just always loved that about John Wick, how they always make him wear black for that very simple reason of, well, the tone of the film, and also to make him very, very easily seeable, or even hard to see when they don't want you to see him. But even when they make him hard to see, you know, there's still dim lighting that hits the black so well that it's like I can see him, but not too well. After his dog dies and everything gets way more blue cast and a lot more like kind of just dim after his dog dies, and after, you know, he wants to start his whole revenge story and everything, which I really, really enjoyed. And even just in the set, that was reflected too, you know, like everything was different after that point, and like the colors were never that bright and everything, or that colorful, but everything went from kind of like neutral, some oranges here and there, to just black, white, and just like dark colors in general. Like even the reds were like super dark and everything like that, in terms of like, say, what the main mafia boss's shirt was. He was wearing a red shirt, if I recall correctly, but even that red shirt was like very, very dark. I know that sounds super loose to design, but remember, it is called production design. You might not think it's design. When you think design, you might just think some guy behind a computer making a logo, but trust me, this is a very important thing to understand with design. What I said about John Wick, it's very important to bring into your own videos, and also it is just, it's one of the most interesting facets of design, to be honest. Like Indiana Jones, everything is just like brown, and that is definitely something design related. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Now, after talking about John Wick, I want to shift my focus a bit to YouTube. I know, it's a little bit weird, isn't it? But I'm not going to be talking about Logan Paul, don't worry. I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite YouTubers known as Hello Greedo. And, well, I mean, I am a Star Wars fan, so it makes sense, but he has a series called Morning Coffee, in which he just talks about whatever, really, for like 3 or 4 minutes. And the title design for that is just this little motion graphic thing, and this kind of like the outline Star Wars aesthetic with white text. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about this one specifically was because A, 2 different typefaces, B, it's very simple animation. You know, you kind of have to look at it to even realize that it's an animation. You know, it's just a mat that comes out this way. Basically, it's very simple, but it's very effective, and that's why I want to talk about it, because if you think about the type of video he's making a very simple, kind of colloquial, very chilled video that isn't trying to be, you know, very showy, and neither is the title design. The title design is simple, it's quick, just like the video, it's relaxing, just like the video, it fits what it is for, and that is why I wanted to highlight it, because, you know, effective design, effective title design, effective anything really is if it fits. Just because something's flashy, it doesn't make it fit, and that's what you need to really take away from this, is that it doesn't matter how complicated it is to make, it's about does it fit. Now, the Hello Greedo towel animation is very easy to make if you know After Effects or Fusion or anything like that, but it is so much better than if he did something like Prank Invasion's intro. You know, like it just that for me, that's the most important thing for design, that you know that it's all about conveying the right message, and sometimes being simple about it is better than morphing letters. I mean, just think about it. With films, right? They could easily put in like these really elaborate like title animations and stuff where the letters like change color and gradient and just like melt, and they have the budget for that, but it'd be super distracting. It wouldn't make sense, and it probably wouldn't fit the movie unless it's like the craziest movie ever. So just remember that. Good design isn't about how flashy you make it. It's not about putting dubstep behind this big rotating letter, and it's about fitting an aesthetic. Now, I want to go back to Casino Royale for a second because I haven't really talked about still images yet, but the cover for Casino Royale is basically James Bond, you know, his jacket and everything, and he's looking down a little bit, and then in negative space is the outline of the woman that he loves, and this is the only movie where we see him have an actual love interest that isn't just a fling. And it's really cool because it's negative space, which is one of the principles of design. You use negative space to create a shape. So that negative space creates the shape of the woman, and I think what's great about that is it kind of shows that it's this other kind of side to Bond, but also that the woman is sort of not real in the sense of, you know, their love is, it's not gonna last. That's what I feel like the negative space kind of shows, is that their love won't last because, well, if you've watched Casino Royale, you know what happens. I don't need to tell you, but their love doesn't last, and I think that's why they chose negative space for that, not just because, oh, it looks cool. Now, for my own videos, what I've learned about design over these past couple of weeks could help me really get that kind of wacky and tacky look even better, and not just kind of be this random weird stuff that I throw on the screen. I definitely still want to keep an element of that, but the thing about design thinking is that you have to make sure that you are being, you know, that you are being authentic about it, that you have a formula for it at least, and, you know, design will help me get that wacky and tacky feeling without just being random about it. For example, making a thumbnail ridiculous by having it read the wrong way, but it's still easy to see and you can still tell what I'm going for, as opposed to a thumbnail where it's just random colors that like really do nothing to achieve anything, and it's just randomness and weirdness everywhere. That's what design thinking is about, and that's how I would apply it to my videos, is still have this wacky and tacky feel, but, you know, kind of make it a bit more of a formula, make sure things still stand out, are still able to be seen, and at the same time very wacky and tacky, but not just make it so like, oh, what the hell is this? I'm not gonna watch this thumbnail, I can't even tell what the hell the text says. You know, that's what it's ultimately about, and that's how I'm gonna put into my videos, basically. Anyway, guys, that's all I have to say about that. I hope you did enjoy the video. I'm sorry the lighting wasn't as good as last time. I managed to get some really awesome LED lights to rent out last time. Hopefully, next video essay, I can do that too. But this time, I just borrowed a friend's small LED light. It definitely doesn't do the trick as well, but hey, it's better than anything I could do on my own. So, shout out to JT Sample. Anyway, guys, that's all I had to say. I hope you learned something, and I will see you in the next video. I don't know why I did that.